What up, YouTube? So today, doing classic kids, medium fade. He's got, I will say, 4C textured hair. C is for coarse. Always remember that. A, B, and C, fine, medium, coarse. When it comes to texture, it refers to the thickness of the diameter of the shaft of the hair and not its formation. Formation is how the hair actually moves. So while I'm doing this consultation, I can visually inspect the hair and see its formation, which is, the arrangement of the client's hair. So his particular formation is tight, curly. So you've got fine, when it comes to formations, you've got straight, wavy, curly, extra curly, and coily. His is coily. So he has a coily formation, or number 4. So 1 is straight, 2 is wavy, 3 is curly, and 4 is coily. And when it comes to the texture, I would say C. C is for coarse. Very wide diameter of that hair shaft. Now, hair density is something else. Hair density is how many individual hairs per square inch. As you can see on the sides and on the back, his hair density isn't as thick or as full as it is on the top. He has a lot of hair density on the top. So what we're doing right now is we're making that initial guideline, balding out from there down. We'll call that segment 1. And the main thing I'm focusing on here is getting a nice, even, consistent balding on the bottommost part of my fade or my blend. And this is really going to set the tone. And as you might notice, I'm brushing, getting the little debris off as I go, the little hair coming off there, just so I can make sure I see what I'm doing. If I don't go through and brush every so often, I say every few sections, then I don't know if that hair is consistent. And what I'm focusing on right here, because I'm not going to be using my shavers, because I know his hair is that curly formation, so I don't want to do anything that might trigger the pseudofolliculitis barbarae, otherwise known as razor bump, especially on a client that's young. And I could be using my Super ZRs right now, but I prefer to use my trimmer just because they're a little smaller, give me a little more room to work with. And it kind of does the same thing. I know my 5-0 blade gets it a little more lower, but with these 000, and I've got them adjusted just right so they won't cause any sensitivity on my client. And you might notice as well, I'm not using the trimmer to punch in that line. I actually have the trimmer facing the other way with the steel blade flat on the client's head. So I went through and went that way, so that way I don't have to work as hard trying to get that bald line out. Now I'm using my Gamma Ergos, using my favorite clippers to fade with. Here recently they have that surgical blade or that fade blade on there, and it's just super easy to play off the client's head. I'm just working right off the client's head there, following the natural curvature, focusing on building my shape, and I'm coming straight up and down with it. It's not necessarily a scooping motion, more so it's me focusing on keeping that steel blade flat on the client's head and getting a super even, consistent second guideline in there. And I'm brushing, of course, as I go. So as you can see, I'm just taking a step back, going through, making sure it's super even, super consistent. And the main thing, I want this particular guide to be the same width all the way throughout this fade and going all around and connecting even into the back. And I'm using certain reference points to kind of remember where I'm at. So I'm using the corner or the arch of the eyebrow there and then coming up. So my fading technique is pretty simple. So I go in all the way open first, then I come in about halfway closed. Then at the very bottom of that guideline, I go all the way closed, and then that will actually connect into the trimmer. So, and what that would be is a true 0. So the more I open the lever, the more hair is left after I pass through with my clipper stroke, and the more I close my lever, the more hair I'm taking out. And then what I'm gonna do is go in with that number 1, same process. Figure out, I'm going about a width of a finger, trying to not create a nice reference point for myself, so that way I know what I'm doing. I can visually inspect, I can see. If he was a little older, I'd be in constant communication with my client. Consultation is everything. Good communication with you and your client will determine whether or not you have a good service and you're actually giving the client what they want, or if you're doing a good, in your opinion, it's a good haircut, but did you really give the client what they want? So the consultation doesn't end at the beginning of the service. The consultation is something that happens throughout the continuation of the entire haircut. Go through, cut the side, ask them, How does that look? Did I go up high enough? What are you thinking? This is the number 2 right here. This is the number 3. Do you like how that looks? How's the shape? Does it look too square? Do you see more of a round shape? What are we doing? Just constant communication. And by doing that, we not only educate our client, but we also create a universal terminology. And that'll just make our profession have a lot more respect. Not only that, but when your client goes to a different barber, whatever the circumstances may be, he knows how to ask for what he wants. How many clients have you had come in and say, oh, I just want it shorter on the side, leave a little length on top? Wouldn't it be nice for your client to say, give me a number 2 here, I want to do a drop fade or whatever you want, make it a medium fade. So by us having a universal terminology, our clients will also have a universal terminology. You don't go to Home Depot and say, I'm looking for, a couple pieces of wood that are pretty long. You kind of have an idea of what you want before you get there, because you do a little bit of research. For barbering, and it's just even easier. Like, we don't even have to make our client go out and do that research. We should be educating our guests every single time they sit in our chair, not just styling the hair, but also telling them how to style the hair. So what we're doing right now, this is the 1.5. So I'm going through just kind of debogging it, and you can see that blend's already starting to come together. So now I'm using the number 2 just to kind of shape a little bit and debog. It may look a little thin there towards the frontalis or the forehead area, right above the eyebrow, but that's actually where his lineup is going to be. So there is a little bit less hair density, and I'm taking all of those factors into consideration throughout this haircut, because I want a super even, super consistent haircut that not only is technically good as far as the precision area goes there. I was actually educating him, and he was like, "This is the frontalis?" I'm like, "Yep." And and even at this early age, it's like the education starts early. It doesn't have to just be an adult. Teach them the bone structure. You got your barber's license, you went through the school, you got the knowledge, share it. What's the point of having all this knowledge if we're not going to pass it on to our guests? So right now, I just finished up with the number 2. I'm going back in, detailing, catching those fine details. I'm brushing, I'm making sure everything's super even, super consistent. And I'm doing that with the lever all the way open, no guard. And I'm using the corners of my, of my clipper. I'm not using the full extent of the blade. I'm doing diagonal strokes with the clipper. It's a chipping motion, a feathering motion. Now I'm going through at the bottom here and just cleaning up, making sure everything's even, because I'm not going to use the shavers on this one. So on this side, same process, going through, lever all the way open, matching it up, taking a step back if I need to, looking in the mirror, making sure I'm balanced on both sides of the head shape. Going through, and you can see on this side, you really can see that juice part in there. It looks pretty cool. So I've been cutting this guy's hair for a while now, but you can see that juice part. Pretty cool. I guess I should mention too, this is actually my youngest boy in this video. He loves getting his hair cut. I have my own barbershop, Goat Barber Club. So every time he comes in, I just got a TV in there too. And right now we're using the number 1. Going through, same process, and I'm moving a little bit faster on this side because it's pretty much the same steps. So we started off with that trimmer, went all the way around, created that initial guideline. Then I went through lever open, no guard, halfway close, all the way closed, and everything in between halfway closed and all the way open. If so, say I'm about a quarter of the way open or 3/4 of the way open, however you want to look at it. So in between all the way and halfway. So what that is that'll just kind of blend and bridge that gap. So it can happen in 4 steps. If you're really good at your flick out or your rock out motion, you probably can do it in all the way open, halfway, and then all the way closed. But if you want to, if you're just starting out, go ahead, take your time, enjoy the process, dude. Trust the process first of all, but also enjoy it. And then what we're doing right now is just matching it up on both sides. So all the way open with the lever. And we're going through, making sure everything's super even, super consistent, matches up on both sides, all the way open. Then you'll see me go to about halfway open with the lever, and then I'm going halfway up that guideline towards the crown. And then at the very bottom, working my way up, so I'm fading from the bottom up. So now I'm about halfway open, and then at the very bottom of this guideline, I'm going to be all the way closed. So the more I go down, the more I have to close my lever. And if I'm working my way back up, the more I have to open my lever, because that'll leave me with more hair. And when I do my detail work, I'm using my chipping motion, my feathering motion with the clipper. That's when I usually have the clipper all the way open and I'm just using those corners. And that allows me to have a little bit more forgiveness and get in there and get those finer details. So now with the number 1 guard all the way open, and you'll see we'll repeat the same process, going up, following up the head shape, keeping that clipper blade, that steel blade, keeping the guard, the profile on that guard flat onto the head shape. And that'll allow me to have that more gradient blend. So I'm all the way halfway, and then at the very bottom with the number 1, I'm going to be all the way closed, but in between the number 1 and the 0, which is the clipper with no guard on it, I have to use that half guard with this wall guard system. I could flick it out without the guard, but since the wall made the guard, it's like, why not use it? So in between the 1 and the 0 is the half, and I'm going to repeat that same process all the way open with my half, halfway open with the half, and then all the way closed with the half at the very bottom of that line. And I'm not just at the bottom of the line, I'm actually remembering where I stopped at with my clipper, no guard, lever all the way open. So this is how it works. Lever all the way open, no guard on there, connects into the half guard all the way closed, and the half guard all the way open connects into the 1 guard all the way closed. And it's that same process. So as you can see, my blend is pretty much done. I'm adding a little bit of product there. I love Layrite. I was using the Grooming Spray by Layrite, and then the Invisible Wear Velvet Cream by Paul Mitchell, which is pretty nice. And what that does is it softens up the hair. How many times have you had a kid in your chair and you got to pick this hair out and detangle it, and they're just like, pulling the scared turtle on you, sucking them shoulders up, whole neck just disappears. But what we're doing right now is hitting them up with the lineup, making sure I'm using the eyebrow as a reference point, just like when I was blending. And you can see that lineup's already coming together. I'm not using a whole lot of pressure, and these are my trimmers. That's nice to have more than one set of trimmers. I have my hitters. Those are my heavy hitters. I use those on that. It's a very particular client that really enjoys that look. That super sharp. Maybe you leave that little ash line on there, like that, that buttery fade. But I'm going for a little more of a natural look, not only because my client has sensitive skin, but because it's just, he's a kid. I like that classic, 90s fade look, It just brings back memories, that nostalgia, that old school, classic fade, high fade. Going through, same thing on this side, and just making sure while I'm using my trimmer that the angle of my trimmer teeth match the shape that I want to cut into the hair. So it's always going to be parallel. So I'm going through, and with kids, a lot of times they have, I wouldn't say a lot of hair density, but they do have some hair density on their forehead. They do have some hair. So it's nice to go through and just kind of trim that up. Not only does it make the lineup pop and it makes it look a lot sharper, but it's just good to do, and it just cleans it up, makes it look a lot nicer. So I'm going through very gently, ever so slightly, just coming down and just trimming up his forehead. And that's just going to make the whole thing pop. And as you can see, we're still dealing with that juice part there from a previous haircut. And that's fine, because what we're going to do at the end, and I always recommend this for your 4C, 3C, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, curly texture hair client, all clients, honestly. Even with straight hair, go through, do a freehand trim on that thing. Go through, clean up those, those little spider legs. Go ahead, clean it up. That's detail. Customers, your client, they appreciate that. So what I'm doing now, I'm going through with the fibers, the Rich the Barber, and I'm going through and I'm adding just a little bit of enhancement here, just because he did have that juice part, and look how that thing disappears. It's almost as if it wasn't even there. And I used a little bit of product. Use product, guys. Like if you have a client that has 4C texture hair, any, curly, any formation, even straight, go through it, comb through it, detangle that hair. Remember what we learned in school. Go through it, detangle it. It just looks so much nicer, so much neater. And then, not only that, but as I went through and picked it, detangled it, it allowed me to catch all those little flyaways there and give an overall just cleaner silhouette to my haircut, which is what I'm going for. So now I'm going in, no drip color enhancement, got the Beam Team XL. I love this thing. It's just a smooth machine. I'm not being super heavy with it. I want to have a nice natural finish, It doesn't have to be super thick. Stop spray painting your client. And I'm not saying that, I love enhancements, but the goal of it is not to, it's just to enhance what they already got. So here's the finished product, y'all. Nice clean haircut. clean kids cut medium fade on 4C textured hair.